Megan, welcome, and it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being on your show.
I'd love for you to share a little bit about what it is that you do and what are you focused on right now.
I am an empowered leadership coach. I also do workshop facilitation and I also do different events and retreats as well, all based on really going within. And I am a positive psychology practitioner. I have over 18 years experience within the corporate world where I built a marketing department from scratch. And I moved into leadership coaching once I started to realize that I wanted to help people to be more empowered leaders. So I also have different modalities within shamanism, druidism, and energy healing, and weaving those within leadership helps people to kind of go inwards to really be able to connect with their leadership skills.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a
So
bridge.
beautiful. So you were in corporate yourself, so maybe let's start there.
Yeah, so I've always been within marketing, but in multiple industries. So I was in uh, crown corporations, I was in oil and gas, I was in television, and a lot of my career was also in insurance. So all different varieties of industries, but the main theme was mostly in marketing. And then the last, 10 years were in the insurance world.
Wow, that is so interesting. So you walked kind of the path, I'm sure some of the path that you are incorporating in some of your work right now or is informing it. So tell us a little more what happened when you started to think about a change and kind of what drove that.
Yeah, a few years back, I find within usually the challenges that we have to overcome in those really difficult times are when we kind of have those epiphany moments. And my new book called Rare Birds Dare to Break Free from the Flock and Find Your Purpose was the catalyst for that book. And it's kind of what I call these tower moments that we have. And that's when we're out of alignment and we aren't walking kind of the path that we're meant to, usually because we're kind of comfortable. And these different things tend to happen and it makes things more uncomfortable until you're kind of like pushed to make a change. So for me, a few years back, I went through cervical cancer. I had a miscarriage. I was in a work environment that was incredibly toxic. I was trying to get short term disability and was rejected multiple times. I went through depression. I went through suicidal thoughts. Like it was the worst year ever. And it was actually my spiritual practices that ended up bringing me back and releasing the victim mentality and releasing, the wounds and all these thoughts that we have around, why me? Like, why is this happening? And it started this journey because of all the learnings that I have. And I've taken probably over 100 different, you know, courses and all these different in leadership and like within all these different modalities that I created this book where it's more exercises for each chapter, but it's very much like going inwards to find what lights you up, what what is your purpose, and then weaving that throughout your daily life because there's so many studies showing that you live longer, your health is better, you have less diseases, and you just have more fulfillment in your life. So many people I talk to are in this space where they're kind of just grinding. They're in a role that they don't feel appreciated. They don't have fulfillment. And that's really why I wanted to bring this to show that there are another path forward, one where you can follow your intuition to help you kind of guide you. And when we start to really have that as our focus, that's when that alignment starts to happen. And that's kind of how I had this on the side for, several years while I was still in corporate, but it was like, no, this is now my time.
Hmm. First of all, what beautiful work, and it sounds absolutely amazing. And I'm sorry about what you went through. That is a lot. That's a lot
Yes.
to go through
It's a
any one
lot.
of those experiences, let alone um, several. I wanted to ask you, so how did you feel about marketing and your career? Did you feel misalignment yourself? And kind of how did that start bubbling up?
Yeah, it was always, I found that I always kind of chased achievement, and I chased it in multiple ways, but it was always outside of myself, right? The next promotion, the next role. And, even though money wasn't my driver, it's how I measured success was based on that. So every time I get a promotion, I'd be like, yay, I'm happy for a day. And then it was just this, it was almost like this emptiness that I felt inside. And there was always something at the back of my mind, even through like most of my career, that I was meant to do something else, but I didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
And I didn't have a direction or a vision. I always just kind of did what people said I should do because I'm a logical person, right? So it's like, oh, go to school, go into business because that's the most amount of jobs. I'm like, sure. So I did that. Get your MBA because you'll get a better job. Sure, I did that. And it just kept on doing things because I was told it was the best route to do. It was the most logical route, but it didn't fulfill me. And so that's when I was leading the marketing for the Fortune 500 company. That's when I started to look deeper, and I actually started doing workshops with like HR on motivation and bringing these different modalities in during the pandemic, right? And when that, and bringing in the positive psychology, because I did that during the pandemic as well. And that's when I started to see like the fulfillment coming back. And so, but the toxic work environment was still there. And I knew I should have left, like intuitively I knew, but it was comfortable. You get you get comfortable in the uncomfortableness because it's familiar. And so that was kind of how I started to bring it back. But it also made me a more empowered leader because I was starting to bring my purpose within the space that I was at. So it allowed me to inspire people, teach people. And I found like those aspects were the things that I loved most, but not my actual job at that point.
Mhm. Yeah, and I can see that, and I can relate to kind of that. I think that is a stage where you're trying to somehow, you're looking to integrate, but you're looking to
Mm,
integrate something that's missing in that kind of structure that you're in, or that's presenting itself at that moment. Um, but it's a process,
yeah. Yeah.
and so, and usually people are in it for a while.
Yes. You definitely have to meet people where they're at. Because I've met many people where I know where they are isn't where they're meant to be, but they're not ready to hear that message yet. And that's one of the things that I think is one of the big lessons of coaching is you have to coach them where they're at. And when they'll get to a point at a certain point where things will happen where they just can't keep going in that direction anymore, whatever their tower moment might be. But once they do and you make that shift, that's where I find that these other opportunities come up. That's where things start to move because you're clearing out all these things that you've been holding on to so tightly
Mm.
because they're familiar.
So, how long did it take you? If we bring it back to your story, how long were you in this place where you're you feel something's missing. You still have this career that works on the outside, right? You know how to show up in it on day-to-day basis. You're trying to kind of bring in this deeper kind of answer to your calling
Hmm.
into it. And what propelled you to make the shift? What was that light bulb moment?
Well, yeah, it was probably, I would say, probably at least the last 10 years,
Mhm.
I would say. It took me a very long time. But when I went through that really bad year, because I'm a very loyal person, and so I thought I needed to be loyal to the company, and just seeing how they treated me, I knew at that point I could never work for, I could not go back, essentially. That was kind of the catalyst for me. I did end up going back into corporate for another position, for another year, but I ended up getting restructured out, which I always knew would happen because I knew I wasn't meant to stay in corporate.
Mhm.
So when that did happen, I might have been shocked at the timing of it, that it was earlier than I was expecting, but not the shift out, just because it's kind of what I believe, where life will present you with opportunities based on kind of like what you're kind of meant to learn in this lifetime.
Mm. I love how you talk about intuition. So it sounds like you were also searching kind of that and um, diving pretty deep with that spiritual aspect of
Mm-hmm.
your own journey, work, however you want to call it. But so tell us, how can somebody, I think it's very, very applicable to this time and moment. So many people are sitting um, in that messy middle. And
Mm-hmm.
how did you start connecting the dots to the next step and then the
Mm,
next step?
yes. So for me, because I'm a very logical person, I wanted to find ways to practically tap into your intuition because, there's a lot of people who are naturally gifted with intuition. So I find it difficult for, someone, say, who's like a psychic, to try and tell you how to use your intuition, because that's been something that's part of it, like that's part of who they are. Where I find people who struggle with certain things, they actually end up being better teachers, right? Because they have to kind of like go through the learning process to try and figure it out.
Mm.
So for me, it was kind of like a combination of both, where it came out later where my intuition became stronger, but I needed to put practices in place to be able to teach it. And that's one of the things that I teach my clients, is kind of like this intuitive leadership to help them see the blocks that might be coming up for them that they don't recognize. And it's not about not using the data, but it's trying to get a more holistic picture of what's happening and say where you should focus on based on that. So there are several ways that your intuition can come out. And I think there's a lot of myths around intuition. At least that's what I had when I first started this process. But so your intuition can come through the different senses. And usually you have, when you're kind of starting out, one that's stronger than the others. So, the clairvoyant, like the psychics, people think that, oh, only psychics can see, which isn't true. Like, you can still use visualizations. Your imagination is actually a gateway into your intuition as well. So visualizations help to strengthen your intuition. And you could even be having that epiphany, that moment that comes through, and you're just seeing yourself like in your imagination doing something. That's also your intuition coming through. Uh, there's knowing. The knowing one is that you just know something to be true, even though someone hasn't told you. And that one's usually a very strong sense.
Mhm.
There's the feeling. So that's where they talk about like the gut reaction, when something feels off. So when we're in tune with our body, we can start using that as a tool. And then there's being able to hear. And I remember talking to one of my friends, because he's like, you hear voices? And I'm like, dude, you hear voices. It's in your head all the time. I'm like, your intuition can be the same voice as your mind, but it will be quieter. And the difference is your intuition will be coming from a place of love, where your mind is coming from a place of fear because it's trying to keep you safe. And that's kind of a way to differentiate when that comes through for you. So, a very simple practice that you can use is the heart connection. And I talk about this in the book as well, is that you would close your eyes, you would kind of ground in, and you can even take like two fingers and place it on your heart, but you're focusing now instead of your mind, and you're going down into your heart, and you start breathing through your heart, and you ask your heart the question, and you just wait and you listen to whatever the wisdom comes through, knowing how it comes through the senses. There's other senses, but those are the main ones. And you ask the question and you just wait to see if there's a quiet voice. Maybe you feel it in your body. Maybe there's a knowing, or maybe in your mind or in your imagination, you see yourself doing something. And the more you start practicing, the stronger it becomes. And then the more you take action, then it becomes stronger. And then you can also have a combination. So, what happens for me is that I usually can see or hear it, but then I get these body sensations that I call like shimmers. And it's almost like a confirmation of how the other senses are coming through. So, it's almost kind of like learning a different language with your senses and how it works for you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And it sounds like it was a journey. And thank you for leading us through, right? A little bit of an experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
and 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 I think I know that you can definitely, when you bring on that kind of the light from your heart, and you feel your whole, you get these like moments where either the shivers or the hair on the back of your like whole body, like the angels
Mm-hmm.
singing moment, like okay, yes or no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you talk a lot about, or not like you. I saw some of the things I looked up about you. You talk about how to know when is it your intuition and when is it your mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big one. Especially when we have attachments to the outcome. That's when our mind can get really pushy to try and kind of take over, or even, especially, I find around time, timing. It's like, I need to do this right now.
Mm.
This needs to happen. Where your intuition is very much around alignment, right? So we're so busy that we're like, I have to keep doing stuff, where your intuition's kind of like, bring it back, because when it comes to time construct, we have a very linear thing of how things work, but when we start flowing with alignment, it moves faster when you start to like really be in the moment and slow down, so you can slow down to speed up, which sounds counterlogical, but
Mm.
it's very much intuitive.
Mm. It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So tell us, so you mentioned logical, and I think that there's the logical, right, side. How did you start leaning into that intuitive and more spiritual side, and how comfortable or uncomfortable was that journey?
It's Yes, it definitely can be uncomfortable following your intuition, because it can be counterlogical at times. But I've also had very beautiful experiences by following it. And what I found too is that when you, even small steps, so it could just be as small as, say, you see someone and you see them multiple times and you're just like, oh, maybe I should go talk to them. And you're like, oh, that's weird. Like, I don't really know them. But just like, what's the worst can happen? It's just going up to them and be like, hi, I'm so and so, and just having a conversation with them. And actually, one of my clients, she did just that. She's like, I had this opportunity at work, and I felt like I needed to speak to this one woman, and she ended up being an alumni for that company that she had this opportunity for, and now she's collaborating with her, which she didn't even know. But it was that following that intuitive. She's like, I feel like I should speak to this woman about this sale that I'm looking to do. And you just never know what will open up when you do that. And even doing small things like there's different small exercises. So you could even just go for a walk and have no destination in mind and just be like following, like, do I go left? Do I go right? I did that in a park close by me. And I ended up finding this woman who did sound baths. And she was doing one and she invited me and we got connected that way. But it was just following your intuition. And the more you get those confirmations, it just gives you more confidence to just keep going. And then it's kind of exciting, right? Because it's that unknown of where it can lead you, where I find in most days, you kind of already have like this expectation of how the day is going to go. And it's like, wow, this is going to happen. I'm going to have my coffee, got these meetings, got this. Where when we start with our intuition, it has that almost excitement of discovery.
Of course. And that's what we are longing for, right? And that's what we are conditioned.
Yeah.
Most of us are living this Groundhog Day of what
Yes.
is modeled and what the system and society is showing us, right? This is how you achieve, strategize. We've made data into a god, honestly, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we've taken that. And the other thing that you described, like, brought me back. That's like a childlike play. That's the natural sense of aliveness, right? And that is
Yes.
actually what we are longing for.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Hmm, beautiful. I find that intuition, that's the biggest reason why we don't have aligned careers. That's I know very few people who are connected to their intuition. So I think it's a huge
Mhm.
conversation, and once you connect with that, you will know you because it is within you. So somebody's sitting, right, that they know they're successful on the outside, right? They have the
Mhm.
career, they're successful within a function or a structure that they know how to show up for, and it's producing results, but their heart is dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
what would be I understand you shared kind of that exercise with connecting with the heart, and maybe a little bit even about what were the most impactful things or practices, or maybe I don't have the right word, that allowed you to start walking towards creating something of your own, something that is in alignment, because I find that it takes tremendous courage.
Oh, yes. Yes. One of the exercises in the book is connecting with your why. And this also helps with motivation as well and resilience, connecting with your why in the morning. And so the difference between, and your why can actually lead you to your purpose as well. So your why, you can think about it in the car as kind of like the fuel. It's, that energy that you get from coming from your why. And you can think of your purpose as almost like the GPS that's kind of navigating the direction that you're going in.
Mhm.
So for me, and the thing is, a lot of people think that it has to be grand. Both these things have to be like, you know, it gets very elusive because people think that it has to be something very big, but it just has to mean something to you. So and my purpose is incredibly broad. It's just to be of service and to help people in all aspects of my life. And that's that was kind of like one of the keys of finding it, is because volunteering was always kind of a part of my path. And it's not that volunteering was a passion of mine, because people are like, "Oh, follow your passions." I'm like, I don't have passions. But sometimes it's the things that we just like doing, over and over, and it gives that fulfillment that can create that. And then for my why, it's to inspire and teach. So in the morning, I have like a ritual where, I go to my altar and I'll be like, how can I inspire and teach today? And doing, the heart connection. What are you hearing? And it's coming back to the impact, right? And when we start with our why in the morning, it allows us to give us more resilience throughout the day, because your emotional outlook on the day, people think, there was like an article I read that I think it was like 8:36. You already know what type of day you're going to have by that time in the morning. And if you're starting with your why, you're kind of re-remembering that passion, what's kind of lighting you up at the beginning of the day. So when things happen, say if you spill your coffee and you're like, I can't find my keys, and it's just, then your mind is now spiraling downwards, and you are going to have this almost narrow focus of how that day is going to go. And that's usually when you're like, oh, it's going to be one of those days, But if you're already in a higher state where you're already thinking about, I'm going to aspire and teach, it helps to build that resilience so you don't get kind of stuck and you can actually spiral upwards.
I love that. That's beautiful. So you're kind of grounding yourself. What came to me was more in that heart.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yes.
bigger, the more loving, like, and then the mind is like more of the tool, to follow
Yeah.
versus then this kind of constricted mind taking over, and it just takes a
Yeah.
few things to happen.
Yeah. And they've shown studies that when you are in those like higher elevated emotions, right, of love and joy, happiness and laughter,
Mm,
you have a more expansive state. So you're able to see those opportunities. So say if something like a challenge comes up, you will probably be more likely to be like, okay, well, what's the opportunity
mhm,
that's being presented that I can't currently see,
mm.
instead of just fixating on what the challenge is. And when you're in those emotions that are more negative, it actually narrows what we can actually see. And it's just like, it's the only thing you can focus on.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's beautiful. Talk a little more about your book. I looked at the cover and you said rare birds. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yeah, there was a couple of reasons why I chose rare bird, but one of the main reasons is that I feel like when we were younger, like follow your dreams. And then life just kind of like kicks you to the curb at some point. And you're like, I feel like, all of our dreams and what we want to do, they kind of get downgraded. And it's like, well, this is good enough, and at some point with the golden handcuffs of the security or what we think is secure within our roles, I feel that it makes us be fearful of risk, of branching out, of going against the grain. People might be like, you're going out on your own, like, oh, like that's kind of risky. So the whole premise of rare birds is that you're taking a different path than what everyone else is taking and what everyone else is doing,
Yeah.
which is scary. It's scary to, go after your purpose, but
Mhm,
that's what a lot of people have, that kind of like, you know what? I know I'm meant to do something else,
mhm,
but they don't have the tools. At least that's what I had, because I was like, I don't know. I know I'm meant to do something, but I don't know what it is.
mhm.
And that's why I wanted to create this book. So you'd have practical exercises at the end of each chapter to, building on your strengths. What are the challenges you've overcome? Even going through your weaknesses, because even a lot of our weaknesses, they turn into the strengths that lead us to our purpose as well.
Mm. Yeah, it is scary, what you said, building that path. and venturing even out on it. It's just like undefined, unknown, rare birds. I love that title. Is it
Yeah.
rare bird or rare birds? And how can people find it?
Yeah, so it launched on Amazon. So you can do it on Amazon, Canada, like .ca or .com. And, I had the Phoenix on it as well because, when we go through those, like I had the tower moments, those moments are the catalysts that lead us as well to our purpose. So they're all just like breadcrumbs that are they're hints on where we're kind of like meant to go. And the phoenix is the one that kind of rises from the ashes. And I talk about because druidism and shamanism are a huge part is like, even building a relationship with death, where a lot of people like, but don't want to do that. But one of the practices is writing your obituary because we live as if we're immortal and we live as if we're going to live forever, but we don't know when our time is. And being able to know what we really want to get clarity on of like, what do you still want to do in this lifetime? And then start living it and doing it. I volunteer at a hospice where the average person won't be there in 3 months. And, having, working and supporting people that are dying, it gives you a new perspective on life and that we don't know what's going to happen next. And that's part of the druid path is very much that, you build a relationship with death because it's part of the cycle. And then you truly appreciate living this lifetime now.
Yeah, and I think it ties into that's amazing that you're doing that. And um, before we started recording, we started chatted about that probably kicks in kind of at a new gear, this search for more meaning or work that's more aligned after 40 because in our 20s, right, 30s, as we go through life and then we have those experiences, right, where it kind of becomes more tangible that uh, the years are going by,
Yeah. Yeah.
including we might lose, people, animals. We go through these more kind of heart cracking open, right, situations that brings it into our reality and makes it much more real and tangible and brings up the
Hmm.
questions.
And when you're always aware of death, and it's not in a fearful way, it's more in an awareness sense, arguments that you have with people, that you love become less important,
Mhm.
right? Like when you're in these, arguments or disagreements with people,
Mm.
you are able to see it from a bigger perspective. And you're like, if I'm not able to see them for whatever reason or something were to happen, is this how I would want to
Mhm.
leave this conversation with someone?
Mm.
And it just kind of helps you to our ego being like, I'm right, you're wrong. And instead just being like, what's the bigger picture here? And it's like the relationship that we have is is more important than some of these smaller arguments that we get in. And it kind of allows you to have that more compassion and empathy and see and connecting with people on a deeper level and appreciating them. Because what I've had, several family members have passed away, and it just you want to appreciate people when they're still there, and you want to be able to tell them that you love them and tell them that how much they mean in your life, because we always seem to remember after we've lost something.
Yeah. And I think the human experience, there will always be an element of but it's going back to, I think the more you are connected to that intuition, then you
Mm.
have that clarity to zoom out.
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
and see what actually is going on, like what is surface level BS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does this really matter, right? It's kind of like
Hmm.
I have a 16-year-old son.
Yeah.
And like they can go in their ego, which is normal, right? They're developing their
Yeah.
ego and everything, and the defensiveness and the willingness to
Yeah.
fight for the right position. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, okay, whatever. I love
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You're awesome. So there, our children also can be a good gateway to see, like, mirror
Oh, yeah.
yourself and a little bit see, like, okay, what is so nonsensical, and what are we fighting for? How much energy are we spending, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's beautiful. So I wanted to ask you, being kind of such a logical person, right? And in corporate America, it's also, DAX data, right? We're like being trained every day, right? That is
Hmm.
the most important thing. How did you lean into the journey of spirituality and kind of intuition and all of that? Shamanism, all of what you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a catalyst of my intuition started to open up on its own. And I I just started to kind of embrace those sides of how it was coming through. But what I found to be kind of the hardest is I had to rejig, I guess, how I saw my image because I didn't believe in anything for many years. And then, so it was also having to rectify these two sides of myself of like, being a corporate leader, logical, and then this other side of like shamanism, druidism, energy healing. So I had to kind of like let go of the ego of how I saw myself to start realigning how these two kind of came together. But it was very much around shifting my perspective on how I saw the world. And because I can be a very stubborn person. And so letting go of certain ideas of how I thought the world worked and taking on the mindset of always being curious, I feel like has allowed me to open up to so many more different like avenues instead of just being like, that's woo or this is this. It's like, okay, like show me a different way or show me something different. So I think when we can be more curious on our path of what's kind of presented to us, instead of saying, this is right, this is wrong, it allows your mind to continuously learn and adapt and evolve. And that's been kind of my mantra as I've been going on this path because there was so much I didn't see and there was so much I didn't know. And I still don't. Like, I'm still in this, I'm always going to be this inner child of learning, is how I want to kind of see the world as, seeing the eyes through a child constantly, because it allows you to take in the information from that place of growth.
Mm. That is interesting you said that, because you did say that you took like courses or certifications, or obviously positive psychology and all these other things. And I find it, and I've been there too, where you're seeking, right? And you're seeking it in whatever it could be, the framework of Kabbalah, some kind of religion, or spiritual
Hmm.
practice, or somebody else's like practice of ranking your frequency, or I feel like,
Yeah.
and we can even use spiritual frameworks, right?
Hmm.
Just as much
Yeah.
as we can use these logical frameworks, and it sounds better, but it's
Hmm.
pretty much can be a similar trap as I see it. So when somebody's sitting with kind of that uncomfortable, messy knowing and kind of desperate knowing, and then they start to chase, right, all the answers through these frameworks, like, is that, I think I had two questions. I started going and started incorporating both of them in one question. But I'm just thinking, how did you step out of that seeking mode, right? And stepping into, okay, now I know this is what I'm doing, and arriving at your why even.
Um, I kept on getting messages, and the thing is, what I found on this journey is that your situations will always reflect back on you. Everything that kind of happens, like themes will come up consistently. And one theme that kept coming up, and it can come up in like conversations, it can come up in situations that you're dealing with. But when you really go off autopilot and start to become aware and really start to see everything that's going on around you, you see these themes. So for me, that theme that kept coming up was you're looking outside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to look inwards. And that was kind of the beginning of actually doing all these, going into the spiritual practices and going within, was because that was a common theme that kept coming up for a while, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I need, and so I just kept looking outside, but that message kept coming up for me. So when you start to pay attention to everything that's going on, paying attention to the conversations, even things that you might not even say, and that just a conversation will come up and it will be something that you're thinking about, that's when you start to pay attention, because sometimes people give you information that they don't even realize they're giving to you. But that was a theme for me.
Yeah. So would you say your book, Rare Birds, is to help people go inward and come back to themselves?
Yeah, all the exercises that are within it is everything's inside of you already. You already have all the answers. It's more so just unlocking them. And that's what all these practices do, is it's you coming back to yourself. And then how do you take that knowing or that wisdom that you've gained, and how do you start implementing it in your day, whether it's like career, whether you're doing a new chapter in your life, or if you just want more meaning in your spare time. It's how do you then start to incorporate it to give yourself more meaning and fulfillment.
So with everything you've learned and practices, you've tried, you know, why is it so hard for us to know ourselves or to come back home to ourselves?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to how well, if you even look at like social media, it's all about comparing yourself and having this like image of how you need to look. It's about followers, not connections. It's a society that we have where it's like, and I know this because I've been in marketing, so I understand the psychology of it, where it's like we're going to use fear to make you want more things. We're going to tell you that for you to be happy, you need this big house, you need this, you need more, you need to buy more, you need to do more. And when you constantly have these messages that you're brought up in, it's very hard, again, like going against the grain of being like, is this real? And then you arrive here and you're like, well, where is it? Like, where you get that promotion, you get the house, you get the car, you get the boat. And it's like, well, this isn't actually fulfilling me. They even did a study, I think it's past like 75,000, that you don't get more, like fulfillment doesn't continue past. It's like once your basic needs are met, more money doesn't make you happy. But we've been taught that it will. Chase the money and you'll get happiness. Chase the money and you'll get fulfillment. Where that's where you have to kind of like dismantle kind of these ideas of what we've been taught to look outside of yourself. And in a society that glamorizes all these different aspects, that's where you have to start doing the inner work to really find what fulfills you.
It's almost a fight to regain yourself, fight to regain clarity. Can you find your aligned work while you are in misaligned work?
Yeah, well, that's what I did for when I was in that one role. That's what I was working with, like the HR people to, do those workshops and to help people knowledge because I love consuming knowledge and I love teaching people things because I want them to have more meaning. And if it can help them in any way, that fulfills me.
Mhm.
So you can, if you want to try and find it within your role, more meaning within it. And one of the things I do teach is like purpose driven leadership,
Mhm.
where it's like, how do you bring purpose back to your role? And that's definitely something that you can do as well.
Megan, I want to be respectful of the time.
Yeah, no
tell
problem.
us how tell us how we can find you, follow you, get more of you.
Yeah, for sure. So my website is www.fearlesslotus.com. You can find me on Instagram, which is fearless.lotus, or I'm also on LinkedIn for Meghan Walsh. And you can also pick up my book, Rare Birds, if it resonates with you. That's on Amazon as well. And yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. I've enjoyed this conversation thoroughly and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for sharing your journey. I encourage anyone who has that call on their heart to get the book. It sounds like a beautiful, beautiful work to start, get the answers and start bridging that gap because it is messy, it is unclear, and any courage, any dose of courage and inspiration, I think is needed every day. And I'll link the links into the show notes so you can just navigate and connect with Megan just by clicking on the link in the show notes. So thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.